One thing that was a bit disappointing when doing a Morrisby test at secondary school in the 1990s was how dour the job results were. For the uninitiated, the Morrisby test was an aptitude test given to students in the middle of their secondary school education in England, the results of which would indicate what sort of career path you might be interested in. I'm pretty sure no one in my year had motorbike daredevil as a result, even those that were super interested in motorbikes. And that's why there's so few around now, motorbike daredevils that is, as the people at Morrisby, well, they've really let down the motorbike daredevil industry for 2 consecutive generations of would-be fearless stunt persons. For shame, Morrisby, we have a surplus of middle management types now and no one jumping over creeks on bikes. Evel Knievel did not do the Morrisby test, and if he saw one of their invigilators, he would have set up a ramp and leapt over them with a throbbing engine beneath his ballsack. Don't you wish you'd never done the Morrisby test and become Evel Knievel? If you do, you'd be dead. I'm sorry, but that's the reality of the situation. Do not fear though, as Robert Craig Knievel lived a fantastic 69 years of high-octane thrills, born unto this non-gasp and wooing world in 1938, and he passed away in 2007 due to pulmonary fibrosis. Growing up in Montana, Knievel saw a automobile daredevil show and was hooked. But Knievel didn't immediately go into heroic acts of dangerous daring do. He had quite the bizarre path into the world of leaping voids on a 2-wheeled vehicle. After leaving school early, he went to work in a copper mine, but he made a mistake one day, cut a power line, which led to a whole city-wide outage, and then he was sacked for that, which is understandable. He then went on to serve in the US Army, started doing some moderate but not vehicular stunt work for crowds like the old rodeo and ski jumping. Then he started, of all things, a semi-pro ice hockey team, became a pest controller and then an insurance salesman. When he raised enough capital, he opened up a Honda bike dealership, found it very hard to import the bikes, and then went to just working in a motorcycle shop where he started practicing the feats that made him an icon. And feats they truly were, and lo, he put his body in great danger throughout much of the 60s and 70s under the name of Evel Knievel. Was he evil? Yes, that was his name, but only in name, not in deed. As far as I know, he never leaped a fleet of Labrador puppies or deliberately crashed into the side of a horse. He broke records and bones, but at times he even outstretched his innate motorbike stunt work ability. He sustained great injuries leaping the large fountains on the grounds of Caesar's Palace, and he hurt himself while trying to clear Snake River Canyon in Idaho. He famously sought to leap the Grand Canyon, but could never work out a means to do so, even with a super-powered concept bike. It was all moot anyway, as the Interior Department officials denied him permission to do so. Knievel found it very difficult to get any form of insurance because he was a bloody loon who did silly things on a wheeled missile. He made a lot of money from his image, including several biopic movies and a partnership deal with Ideal Toys that produced all manner of stuff for the budding stunt-loving child. There was even a Ballymidway pinball machine. Cool. And there were several video games too, including this one, Evel Knievel, on the Gameboy Color, developed by Tarantula Studios and released by Rockstar Games. Tarantula Studios were Gameboy Color specialists, programming games based on the Muppets and 2 Austin Powers games, along with a conversion of Montezuma's Return, and then going on to work on Oni on the PS2 and Max Payne 3 for the 7th generation consoles. Should I tell you what Rockstar Games publish? No, you know already. So, Evel Knievel then. You know how at the beginning of the review I asked if you wished that you were Evel Knievel? Well, guess what? You can now be Evel Knievel. Yes, this Game Boy Color game puts you in the white flame retardant suit and Americana flag tiny cape of the world's most famous stunt performer. How does that crotch smell in that suit? Like the toil of the common man, I'll bet. You're in a side-scrolling caper here, which should look very familiar to fans of hoary old classics like Trials and Kickstart 2. There are 25 levels spread over 5 geographical locations, those being Las Vegas, San Francisco, Los Angeles, London, and the last location, Snake River Canyon, which is playable once you have mastered the others, so plenty of twitching physics-based stages for you to try and remain upright on. And for the Gameboy Color, this is a beaut. All of the levels are based on different significant landmarks like Alcatraz and the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco and the Tube and Tower of London in, well, London. It is a cracking looking Game Boy Color game, that's for sure. But these tourist attractions won't be getting a lot of viewing, particularly during the early part of your play, as you'll be seeing a lot more of this screen in particular. Poor old Evel Knievel splayed on the dirt like he's had 50 bottles of hooch. More on this later. Once you've finished the 4 levels playable at each location, you get to use the money you've earned during these preliminary stunt sections to snazzify an event called the Grand Finale for each area. This is where the evil one can earn big bucks by doing the big leaps that he's made famous for. These bits are the most reminiscent of that Eddie Kidd game that I played on the 8-bits last year. They're mostly based on the leaps Evel Knievel did in real life, like Caesar's Palace or the Snake River Canyon. You can make Evel Knievel more points or money by not only filling the stadium up with things like cheerleaders and fireworks, but also by making the leap more dangerous and longer. Can you go the distance and, more importantly, stick that landing? A lot rides on this Evel, you better get it right. But most of the meat of the game is made up in these sections that involve platforms and staying on your bike. You can tweak the settings before you start any of these, adjusting things like your speed, your ability to flip, and how strong your brake is. Adjusting these may help you clear a difficult section and may be more catered to how you would like to do your little runs on these stages. This game does so much right, from the presentation to those end of stage leaps, that I almost feel bad for saying this. There are decisions made in the making of this game that made it far worse than it should be. It is so difficult. Now, Trials is difficult, but Trials is brilliant, and fundamentally they're very similar games. So what's the difference here? Well, a few things. In Trials, when you crash, you restart at a checkpoint, whereas in Evel Knievel, you will start at the beginning of the stage. Additionally, both your rider and your bike have energy bars. Well, the bike has a fuel bar, and you can cause both damage when you have a mishap. Once you've damaged 5 bikes or your character, your game is done, and Evel Knievel has a habit of unfortunately banging his head on overhanging objects. If only those overhanging objects didn't cause you damage at all, this game could have been a lot more fun. So you've got limited lives, limited energy for both your character and the bike, and no checkpoints. It's too much, it really is too much. And it makes you ride more and more risk averse and try to take the courses on very slowly where you can. That's not very Evel Knievel-y, is it? Add into that the controls, where they are a little on the wrong side of twitchy, and you've got a game that soared into the air really well initially and then completely failed to stick the landing, broke its leg in front of hundreds of people, and my God, should it be embarrassed? Yes, it should. CMVG weren't massively impressed with the King of Flying Motorbike's handheld venture. They asked us, was it worth playing, rhetorically, before replying to itself, yes, despite the controls, Evel Knievel is quite engaging to play. The lure of big jumps drags you in, but the fact is, it's not much fun to play. They gave it 2 stars out of 5 in issue 219. IGN were extremely unimpressed by the wheelie performing gentleman and his airborne antics. They wanted to perform violence upon the person for greenlighting Evel Knievel at Rockstar. Did this game get any playtesting, they quizzed. Surely there must have been a few folk that might have mentioned the sheer impossible nature of the gameplay. If the designers gave a little leeway to the collision, of your rider's head, this game could have been a lot more fun. But as it stands, a great looking game is not good if you can't play it. A mere 2 out of 10 from them when they reviewed it back in December 1999. I bet Evel Knievel's not happy about those scores, but he can cheer himself up by treating himself to that most American of dishes, the burger. And maybe he can get it at Burger King. Because next time we're going to be playing Whopper Chase on the Commodore 64, the Spectrum and the MSX. Until then, like, subscribe, and thanks, bye.